Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India has been taken over by the radical RSS ideology, which is inspired by Nazism. This report has the details.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan is in Malaysia on a two-day official trip. Speaking at the Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies in Kuala Lumpur, Khan said the BJP government is trying to exterminate Muslims in occupied Kashmir and India the way Hitler set out to eliminate the entire Jewish race. The Prime Minister warned of worsening situation in the occupied valley if the Muslim world stays silent. Khan told the gathering that New Delhi has annexed the valley and turned it into an open prison for the past 6 months. He said there is no link between Islam and terrorism.
When the Western leaders started calling it Islamic terrorism, we should have all objected. What had their act, the terrorist act, what had that got to do with Islam? There was no connection between Islam and those terrorist acts.
The Pakistani Prime Minister said the growing Islamophobia needs to be tackled by educating the new generation, especially non-Muslims, about the true face of Islam. Earlier, Malaysia's Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad and Khan signed an extradition treaty to enhance security cooperation. Speaking at a joint press conference, Khan thanked Mahathir for his unwavering support for the Kashmir cause.
Pakistan's President Arif Alvi says India must allow United Nations observers to monitor the situation in occupied Kashmir. Addressing a seminar in Islamabad, he said Kashmir is an integral part of Pakistan and an unfinished agenda of subcontinent's partition. The valley has been reeling under India's lockdown and communications blackout since August last year. Earlier, the National Assembly unanimously passed a resolution calling on India to reverse the annexation of Kashmir. Meanwhile, preparations in Pakistan are in full swing to observe Kashmir Solidarity Day on Wednesday to highlight the plight of Kashmiris. Pakistan annually observes the day to remind the world community of its obligations towards the resolution of the outstanding dispute. In the US, Seattle City Council, among the most powerful city councils in the country, has passed a motion against India's controversial Citizenship Act. The resolution was passed to express solidarity with the city's South Asian community, regardless of religion and caste. The council said it finds the legislation to be discriminatory to Muslims, oppressed castes, women and indigenous people. The council asked New Delhi to repeal the act and take steps to help refugees under UN resolutions. It said Seattle City's decision to condemn the law is a message to all who wish to undermine pluralism and religious freedom. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Turkey will not allow Syrian forces to gain ground in the war-torn Idlib. His statement follows Monday's killings of 8 Turkish soldiers in Syrian shelling. Speaking on a flight back from Ukraine, Erdogan says Turkey doesn't want a serious confrontation with Russia. Erdogan has earlier criticized Russia for failing to enforce peace agreements in Idlib, but he toned down his rhetoric in the latest statement. Last month, Turkey and Russia declared a ceasefire in Idlib, but it is yet to take effect. Meanwhile, the UN says it is alarmed by the recent clashes between Turkish and the Syrian government forces in northwestern Syria. Speaking to media in New York, UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric pressed the warring sides to return to negotiations. According to the UN, intensified bombardment in the region has forced nearly 700,000 people to flee towards the Turkish border. The UN says Libya's warring parties have shown a genuine desire for peace as they began peace talks in Geneva. But the UN envoy for Libya, Ghassan Salami, says violations of the Libyan arms embargo and influx of new mercenaries continue to present a challenge. Talking to media, Salami said the two sides aim to discuss how a lasting and sustainable ceasefire can be achieved. He said he hopes the UN Security Council will pass a resolution to reaffirm the arms embargo in the next few days. Yesterday, the UN-mediated talks were held between the representatives of the Government of National Accord and the Libyan strongman Khalifa Haftar. The 10-member body was created at the conclusion of a 12-nation summit held in Berlin last month. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell has rejected parts of US peace plan that would see Israel keep its settlements in the occupied West Bank. In a statement, Borrell reiterated that EU doesn't recognize Israeli settlements in the West Bank, East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights. He said US President Donald Trump's proposals are contrary to internationally agreed parameters. Borrell added that steps towards annexation could not pass unchallenged. Unveiled by Trump earlier this month, the peace plan was welcomed by Israel but has been widely criticized by Arab leaders. Moving on, the UN Security Council says it will hear a closed-door briefing on Thursday from President Trump's advisor Jared Kushner on his Middle East peace plan. Speaking to reporters in New York, Council President Mark Pistin de Bostoworov said Kushner will speak to diplomats for an hour. Bostoworov said he hopes Kushner will answer questions and reservations surrounding the deal. The UNSC president said he wants the council be united on the issue. He said the Security Council will also hold a meeting with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas on February 11th. Last week, US President Donald Trump unveiled his controversial Middle East peace plan, sparking outrage from many countries. Meanwhile, a Palestinian official has termed the Sudanese head of state's meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu a stab in the back. Senior Palestinian official Saeb Erekat denounced the meeting, saying it has outraged all the Palestinians. Erekat called it a blatant departure from the Arab Peace Initiative at a time when Israel is trying to liquidate the Palestinian cause. Yesterday, Netanyahu met secretly in Uganda with head of Sudan's Sovereign Council, Abdul Fattah al-Burhan. Both the leaders agreed to work to forge normal relations for the first time. The meeting came on the day the Organization of Islamic Cooperation unanimously rejected US President Trump's Middle East peace plan. Tensions are high in the Persian Gulf as Iran threatens to exit the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. But Iranian ambassador to Pakistan, Sayyid Mohammad Ali Husseini, says Tehran will return to its JCPOA commitments if other signatories do the same. What in this report by Minahil Ahmed?
Iran is facing growing isolation over its stance on the 2015 nuclear accord as the deal's European signatories threaten to move the UN. At a strategic studies seminar in Islamabad, Iranian ambassador Sayyid Mohammad Ali Husseini said Iran is the only country abiding by the pact. Husseini called on all parties to honor and respect the Iran nuclear deal.
Every deal has 7 parties, and all parties should honor and respect this deal. Some countries have not respected it and have withdrawn from the deal. Despite that, we are committed to the peace and stability in the region.
He called on all regional states to join Iran's Hormuz peace endeavor for the sovereignty, security, and stability of the region.
We are inviting regional countries to participate in our peace initiative. We have shown maximum restraint even after the terrorist attack of the United States by assassinating Qasem Soleimani.
Iran has ruled out any possibility of bilateral talks with the United States unless it lifts all sanctions. But Washington has continued with its policy of maximum pressure by piling up further curbs on Tehran. Reporting for Indus News, Minahil Ahmed, Islamabad.
Greece says that it will send some of its Patriot defense missiles to Saudi Arabia under a program involving the US, Britain and France. Speaking in Athens, a Greek government spokesman said the missiles will be deployed at the kingdom's cost. He said the move aims to protect Saudi Arabia's critical energy infrastructure. The announcement came as Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis was on a Middle East tour for investment talks with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. The World Health Organization says the coronavirus outbreak doesn't yet constitute a pandemic. Speaking in Geneva, WHO official Sylvie Briand said unfounded rumors about the virus should be tackled. The death toll from deadly new coronavirus has now risen to 425, with over 20,000 confirmed cases in 27 countries around the world. But WHO official Sylvie Briand has urged the global community not to panic. She said the WHO is working with the governments to repatriate their citizens from virus-hit Wuhan city.
And regarding the repatriation, we are working with countries now. As you know, we have the executive board, so we have intense discussion with our member states to see how we can harmonize the practices.
Meanwhile, Hong Kong has reported its first death from the incurable disease, becoming the second casualty outside China. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam warned of serious consequences of the hospital workers' strike after the recent death.
The consequences yesterday were quite serious. Important services, critical operations have been affected, whether it is in the neonatal ICUs, in the isolation wards, or patients awaiting certain cancer treatments. All these have been affected.
China's National Health Commission says the mortality rate will drop, promising the mobilization of more medical resources in Wuhan. But hysteria over the outbreak continues across the world, with travel and trade restrictions on China. In Taiwan, 13 people have died in the last week from the H1N1 strain of swine flu. The Taiwanese government says 56 people lost their lives to the virus in the last 3 months. The government says in this season there have been 750 swine flu cases with severe complications. Of the severe cases, 41% of the patients are over 65 years of age. Government data suggests 43 patients who died from the virus in the last 3 months were not vaccinated. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. White House lawyers and Democratic House managers have wrapped up their closing arguments in President Donald Trump's Senate impeachment trial. The Republican-dominated Senate is largely expected to vote along party lines to acquit Trump on Wednesday. This report has more.
President Trump's acquittal is almost certain, as a two-thirds majority is required in the Senate for a conviction. As it is, Republicans hold 53 seats to the Democrats' 47. Chief House Prosecutor Adam Schiff delivered an emotional speech, saying Americans cannot trust Trump to do the right thing.
Can we be confident that Americans and not foreign powers will get to decide, and that the President will shun any further foreign interference in our democratic affairs? And the short, plain, sad, incontestable answer is no, you can't. You can't trust this president to do the right thing, not for 1 minute, not for one election, not for the sake of our country.
Trump's lawyers flatly reject allegations against the president, who is accused of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. White House counsel Pat Cipollone said Trump did nothing wrong, calling the trial purely partisan and political.
We have an impeachment that is purely partisan and political. It's opposed by bipartisan members of the House. It does not even allege a violation of law. It is passed in an election year, and we're sitting here on the day that election season begins in Iowa. It is wrong. There is only one answer to that, and the answer is to reject those articles of impeachment.
Trump is just the third president in U.S. history to be impeached by the House of Representatives.
U.S. President Donald Trump has described the Iowa caucuses as an absolute disaster after officials were unable to declare a winner. No definitive timetable has been given for the release of official results from Monday's caucuses. However, former mayor of the South Bend, Pete Buttigieg, and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders both have declared victory. Iowa Democratic Party officials blamed reporting problems for the delay in announcing a winner in the vote. The DNC says the result of the first caucus in the primary race are subject to quality checks after reports of inconsistencies in 3 sets. A change in the rules since 2016 race now requires a caucus to report 3 sets of numerical data instead of 2 for each count. The Iowa vote will offer a crucial early look at the viability of the 11 Democrats still in the race. The World Health Organization says the first flight carrying critically ill Yemeni patients has left the rebel held capital Sana'a. The UN body said the people will receive life-saving care not available in Yemen. It is the first such aid flight in over 3 years. The UN says 8 patients and their relatives took off for Amman in a UN-marked plane. The majority were women and children suffering with aggressive cancers and brain tumors. The WHO confirmed the medical evaluation is expected to continue with another 3 flights this week. In South Africa, a court has issued an arrest warrant for former President Jacob Zuma after he did not appear in the corruption case over needing medical treatment. But the judge stayed the warrant until the next hearing on May the 6th. Zuma's lawyer presented a document from a military hospital to excuse his client. But the judge questioned whether the note was valid or even written by a doctor. Prosecutor said it was a criminal offense not to fully explain an absence on medical grounds. The former leader is on trial for 18 charges of fraud, racketeering and money laundering, which he denied. The European Parliament has announced its strong support for the opening of talks that could lead to Albania joining the bloc. The Parliament's President David Sassoli said the process should resume despite a slowdown at the end of the last year. At a joint press conference with Prime Minister Edi Rama, Sassoli said Albania's membership is as necessary as that of other Western Balkan countries. He said the country has made huge progress in line with EU expectations. Rama called Sassoli a long-standing friend and a supporter of Albania's full integration into the European bloc. The United Nations has urged for talks with armed groups in Mali, saying extra troops will not help the peace process. The head of UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Mali said the country needs more political engagement. UN officials told journalists in Geneva Mali was at a watershed and complained of a lack of international support. Last year, the UN office in Mali received just 5% of $3 billion required for a 14,000-strong peacekeeping mission. The United Nations says over 4 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance in Mali as security risks grow. Militant activities across Mali have displaced over 200,000 people, as many live without any government or defense mechanism. Campaigning for the May 3rd elections is underway in Bolivia. The Supreme Electoral Court says presidential and legislative candidates are allowed to raise support for their candidates. Exiled President Evo Morales nominated former the Economy Minister Luis Arce Catacora for his movement to socialism. Former President Carlos Mesa and Bolivia's current interim president Janine Áñez are among the candidates. Banned from running for presidency, Morales has registered as a Senate candidate for the Cochabamba region in southern Bolivia. His party leads opinion polls on 26% in a split field despite a right-wing interim government in La Paz.
I want to take this opportunity to mention that the movement to socialism wishes to express its opposition and denounce the harassment that our delegate to the Supreme Electoral Court is receiving.
Bolivians will vote to elect 36 senators and 120 deputies. Now moving on to Sri Lanka, a Tamil language version of the national anthem has been dropped from this year's Independence Day celebrations. The version in the ethnic language was included in the 2016 as part of efforts to heal the wounds of a war between Tamil separatists and the Sinhalese majority. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa delivered his speech in Sinhala, which was translated into Tamil. But at celebrations marking the 72nd anniversary of independence from Britain, the anthem was sung only in Sinhala. Critics say the move is a setback to reconciliation after years of ethnic civil war. Rajapaksa was a key figure in the crushing of Tamil Tiger separatists that ended Sri Lanka's conflict in May 2009. The war claimed more than 100,000 lives between 1972 and 2009. Ethiopia is trying to follow China's example by attracting foreign investors through its cheap labor force. But the plan is failing because young Ethiopians refuse to work in jobs where they feel underpaid.
22-year-old Zeman Zerihun
thought he had finally left life as a farmer behind when he got a job in a textile mill. But he worked long hours 6 days a week, earning only $35 a month. He quit the job within just a few months, saying he couldn't make ends meet and couldn't put up with the disrespectful managers.
It was very difficult. I suffered a lot at this company. We were made to work long hours for a laughable salary. It was exhausting.
Such experiences are a major challenge to Ethiopia's push for industrialization. It wants to attract foreign investment with its cheap labor, the same model followed by China and other Asian nations. But the Ethiopian youth aren't willing to work for the wages that would make this possible.
If wage is high and investment doesn't come, not new employment is going to be created.
Thousands of employees have already walked out of the country's brand new network of industrial parks. One report has also pointed out that investors have found Ethiopian more expensive than advertised by the government. As such, youth employment remains an issue in the country, with 2 million entering the workforce every year. In Italy, the management of the Perio ski resort has started a war against pollution. Their first move is to ban plastic cups, spoons and straws. Nestled in the Alps, the resort has become the first ski resort to ban single-use items. What in this report?
Abandon all plastic and reduce plastic. These are the signs displayed at the Perio resort. The decision was made after scientists revealed the Forni glacier could contain between 131 and 162 million plastic particles. Tourism is a major contributor to the Italian economy. Last winter, 137,000 skiers visited this resort.
As for the cable car tickets, we replaced one-day ski passes, which were previously covered with plastics, with paper tickets.
The local tourism board is also optimistic about the decision. Banned plastic items have been replaced with alternatives.
Basically, we've changed everything, starting from the small items. Plastic bottles have been replaced by glass bottles, but also straws, containers, glasses, single-use plastic. All these things have been removed and replaced with alternatives using different materials such as cellulose, paste, cardboard and other materials compatible with nature.
Skiers are also backing this eco-friendly choice.
I'm sure we are not able to get rid of plastic 100% because we need it for life economy. But if we reduce it somehow, it would be great for us, for the earth.
This is not the first environmentalist choice the valley has made. They already use renewable energy produced by 3 small hydroelectric plants.
The UK has been undergoing its worst slump in economic productivity in 250 years. A study by British academics suggests productivity was almost 20% below its pre-2008 level in 2018. It is the biggest slowdown since the Industrial Revolution. Professor Nicholas Crofts, co-author of the report, said there are no certain reasons behind the unprecedented slowdown. But Crofts said unfavorable conditions include the end of the ICT boom, the implications of the financial crisis and Brexit. Crofts said Brexit undermined investment and diverted managerial time to contingency planning rather than productive activity. US manufacturing activity has rebounded in January after a 5-month contraction. The Phase 1 trade deal signed between Washington and Beijing has contributed largely to the growth. The Institute for Supply Management says the US Purchasing Managers Index rose by over 3% to 50.9. The report said US GDP growth slowed in 2019 compared to 2018, reflecting diminishing fixed investment and downturn in exports. The US PMI had been stuck below 50-point mark since August 2019. A reading below 50 indicates the manufacturing sector is contracting. Wall Street stocks have jumped as coronavirus fears recede after slowing down the economy. The shares of Nvidia, Micron and Apple have soared. The Nasdaq Composite Index climbed after reporting a surge in Tesla shares to 15%. The indices of Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped nearly 2%. The S&P 500 index also traded in positive territory. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.